The label started when I was 12, the day Mom found my business plan for a neighborhood lawn service written in purple gel pen. "Dreams are cute, sweetie, but you need to be realistic about your abilities," she'd said, tucking the carefully drawn charts into the recycling bin. "Maybe focus on being a good helper instead." 23 years later, that helper mentality had crystallized into the family's favorite way to introduce me. At every gathering, every social event, every chance encounter with their friends, I was their secretary, their assistant, their entry-level forever daughter who'd never quite figured out how to aim higher. The pattern had been reinforced countless times over the years. When I graduated college with a computer science degree, Dad explained to relatives that I'd found something practical in office support. When I moved to Silicon Valley, Mom told the neighbors I was doing filing work for tech companies. When I bought my first house at 25, they assumed I'd gotten help with the down payment because secretaries don't make that kind of money. Each assumption built on the last, creating a narrative so embedded in family lore that questioning it seemed impossible. I was the practical one, the supporter, the person who kept other people organized while they achieved important things. My role was to facilitate success for others, never to pursue it myself. The irony wasn't lost on me that while my family saw me as perpetually entry-level, I'd been promoted to senior engineer at 3 different startups by age 27. While they worried about my limited career prospects, venture capitalists were returning my calls within hours. While they encouraged me to be realistic about my capabilities, I was debugging systems that processed millions of transactions daily for companies they'd heard of but could never imagine working for. But maintaining their comfortable assumptions had become a full-time job in itself. Every phone call required careful editing to remove references to board meetings, acquisition talks, and patent filings. Every family visit meant dressing down, driving my older car, and speaking vaguely about computer work when asked about my job. The cognitive dissonance was exhausting, but the alternative felt even more complicated. Tonight was Dad's company holiday party, held at the Meridian Country Club where he'd been a member for 15 years. The same country club where I'd eaten countless family dinners, watched him network with other executives, and listened to him explain why certain people belonged in certain positions. According to Dad's worldview, some people were born to lead, others were born to follow, and I had clearly inherited Mom's supportive personality, rather than his executive instincts. "Sarah, remember to let me do the talking tonight," Dad had instructed during the drive over. "These are important business relationships and first impressions matter. Just smile and be pleasant, but don't try to contribute to conversations about things you don't understand." I'd nodded from the back seat, the same spot I'd occupied during childhood car rides when Dad explained the hierarchy of the adult world. Mom rode in front, of course, as his equal partner in marriage and social status. Michael sat behind Dad, positioned as the heir apparent to family success. I sat behind Mom, appropriately positioned as the supportive daughter who would never challenge the established order. "David, bring your family over here," called Mr. Harrison, Dad's boss and the regional vice president. Dad's chest puffed with pride as he gestured for us to follow him across the marble foyer. This was his moment to show off his successful family to the company leadership, each member positioned to reflect well on his judgment and parenting skills. The introductions followed their familiar script. "This is my wife Margaret, a wonderful homemaker who keeps our family running smoothly," Dad began with practiced precision. "My son Michael, who just made partner at his law firm downtown. He's handling some significant merger cases this year." Michael straightened his tie and shook hands with the confidence of someone who'd never been told his dreams were too big. At 31, he embodied everything Dad valued in a successful offspring: prestigious career, impressive salary, social connections that enhanced the family's standing in their community. Then Dad's hand landed on my shoulder, and I felt the familiar weight of diminished expectations. "And this is my daughter Sarah. She's our secretary." The words hung in the air like they always did, heavy with unspoken limitations and comfortable assumptions about my place in the family hierarchy. Mr. Harrison smiled politely and shook my hand with the distracted courtesy reserved for support staff, his attention already shifting back to Dad and Michael for the real conversation. "How nice," Mrs. Harrison said, offering me the kind of warm but dismissive nod that said she'd already categorized me as someone's assistant and wouldn't need to remember my name. "Secretary work is so important. Someone has to keep the important people organized." Michael laughed, the sound carrying just enough edge to establish his superior position. Sarah's been entry-level forever. Some people are just more comfortable in supporting roles, you know? Not everyone has the instincts for leadership. His comment drew approving nods from the assembled adults, reinforcing their shared understanding of natural hierarchies and appropriate ambitions. I smiled and nodded in response, the same reaction I'd perfected over decades of similar moments. That's true, I agreed pleasantly. I'm definitely more comfortable in the background. Dad beamed at my appropriately modest response. This was exactly how these interactions were supposed to go. I played my role as the humble family secretary. He maintained his image as the successful executive with the properly ordered household, and everyone stayed comfortable in their assigned positions. Sarah's always been our practical one, Mom added, joining the conversation with a plate of appetizers balanced expertly in one hand. Never had those unrealistic dreams that cause so much disappointment. She knows her strengths and stays within them. The conversation flowed around me as it always did, touching on Michael's latest case, Dad's promotion prospects and Mom's charity work. I was present but peripheral, acknowledged but not consulted, introduced but not interviewed. The family secretary taking mental notes and staying appropriately invisible while the important people discussed important things. Michael's working on a fascinating acquisition case, Dad was explaining to Mr. Harrison. 2 technology companies merging their operations. The legal complexities are staggering, but he's navigating them brilliantly. Technology mergers are incredibly complex, Mr. Harrison agreed. The due diligence alone requires understanding systems most lawyers never encounter. Your son must have exceptional analytical skills. I listened to their discussion of intellectual property transfers, regulatory compliance requirements, and valuation methodologies with the detached interest appropriate for someone whose job involved filing rather than strategic thinking. Of course, I'd been through 7 acquisition processes myself, 3 as the target company CEO and 4 as the acquiring party, but that information didn't fit the evening's social dynamics. At dinner, the seating arrangement followed predictable patterns. Dad at the head table with other executives, Mom beside him discussing their upcoming cruise to celebrate his recent promotion. Michael was positioned 3 tables over with other young professionals, networking aggressively and collecting business cards that might advance his career. I was seated at table 7 with the other support staff and family members who didn't quite fit the evening's executive theme. The placement wasn't intended as an insult exactly, but rather as an acknowledgement of social reality. Secretaries sat with other secretaries, leaving the leadership discussions to people qualified to participate in them. "So you work for your father?" asked Janet, the wife of one of Dad's colleagues. She seemed genuinely interested, which was refreshing after years of polite dismissal. "In a way," I replied carefully, cutting my salmon into precise pieces. "I help keep things organized." "That must be nice working with family. Very stable, very secure. No need to worry about office politics or competition." I nodded and smiled because stability and security were exactly what everyone expected me to value most. Not for me the uncertainty of entrepreneurship or the stress of high-stakes decision-making. I was the family secretary, and secretaries valued predictability above all else. "Stability is definitely important," I agreed, taking a sip of wine. "Some people thrive on chaos, but I prefer knowing what to expect." Janet launched into a story about her daughter's struggles in the competitive marketing industry, contrasting it with my sensible choice to prioritize security over advancement. Around the table, other conversations touched on similar themes: the wisdom of knowing your limitations, the dangers of unrealistic ambitions, the value of finding contentment in modest achievements. I participated appropriately, asking thoughtful questions and offering supportive comments while revealing nothing that might complicate their understanding of who I was supposed to be. The performance had become second nature after years of practice, as automatic as breathing. After dinner, the evening's program began with awards and recognition for Dad's company's most successful year in decades. As the regional VP took the stage, Dad's table leaned forward with the attention of people who understood they were witnessing something significant in their professional community. "This year has been extraordinary for our industry," Mr. Harrison announced, his voice carrying clearly through the ballroom's excellent acoustics. "We've seen consolidation at unprecedented levels, innovation that's reshaping entire market segments, and leadership that's redefining how business gets done in the digital age. The lights dimmed as a presentation began, showcasing the year's biggest business stories with professional slides and compelling graphics. Mergers worth billions of dollars, startup acquisitions that made front-page news, technological breakthroughs that disrupted industries overnight. Dad watched with the focused intensity of someone trying to understand forces much larger than his regional office. The business landscape is changing faster than ever before, Mr. Harrison continued over images of gleaming corporate headquarters and bustling trading floors. Traditional boundaries between industries are dissolving. Geographic limitations are becoming irrelevant. The most successful leaders today are the ones who saw these changes coming years ago and positioned themselves accordingly. Slides flashed across the screen showing Fortune covers, Forbes rankings, and Wall Street Journal headlines. Stories of executives who'd built empires from nothing, entrepreneurs who'd revolutionized entire industries, innovators who'd created completely new markets worth hundreds of billions in total value. Some of these leaders started in the most unexpected places, Mr. Harrison noted, advancing to a slide showing a garage-based startup that had become a global technology powerhouse. They didn't follow traditional career paths or conventional wisdom. They saw opportunities where others saw obstacles, built bridges where others saw walls. I watched Dad's face as the presentation continued, recognizing his expression of professional admiration mixed with personal distance. These were the stories he read about in business magazines during his commute, the kind of extraordinary success that happened to other people in other cities. Inspiring certainly, but ultimately separate from his world of regional management and country club networking. The common thread running through all these success stories, Mr. Harrison explained, is vision combined with relentless execution. These leaders didn't just dream big, they built the systems, relationships, and capabilities necessary to make those dreams into measurable reality. Michael leaned back in his chair, arms crossed with the confidence of someone who saw himself reflected in these narratives. His law firm handled mergers and acquisitions for mid-sized companies, so he understood the mechanics of business transformation even if he wasn't driving the process personally. He belonged in conversations about multi-million-dollar deals and market disruption. Meanwhile, I continued cutting my salmon into smaller and smaller pieces, maintaining the pleasant but detached expression of someone who found these stories interesting but not personally relevant. The family secretary, appropriately impressed by achievements that were clearly far beyond her sphere of influence or understanding. The technology sector has been particularly dynamic, Mr. Harrison continued, advancing to slides showing cloud computing infrastructure and data processing capabilities. Companies that were barely known 5 years ago are now essential to how business operates worldwide. Images flashed across the screen of server farms, fiber optic networks, and digital interfaces that looked remarkably similar to the systems I'd been designing and scaling for the past 8 years. But of course, that observation didn't fit with my role as someone who helped file important documents for other people. Now, Mr. Harrison said, his tone shifting to suggest something particularly significant was coming, I want to share something that hit particularly close to home this week. Something that reminded me how quickly our industry is evolving and how important it is to recognize excellence wherever we find it. The screen filled with a familiar magazine cover, the distinctive Fortune logo bold across the top in the magazine's signature red typography. This month's Fortune features their annual CEO of the Year recognition, highlighting executives who've demonstrated exceptional leadership during the most challenging business environment in decades. Dad straightened in his chair, the automatic response of someone who'd been subscribing to Fortune for 20 years and studying the strategies of America's most successful business leaders. These were his professional heroes, the people whose careers represented the absolute pinnacle of executive achievement. The winner this year is particularly noteworthy, Mr. Harrison continued, because she represents something we're seeing more and more in today's business environment. A leader who built a global technology empire from absolutely nothing, revolutionizing how companies manage their digital infrastructure and data processing needs. The magazine cover came into sharp focus on the screen, professionally lit and expertly composed. There, photographed against a backdrop of state-of-the-art server farms and data centers that represented the backbone of modern business, was a headshot I'd taken 6 months ago for DataCore's annual report. DataCore Systems, Mr. Harrison read directly from the screen, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the now silent ballroom, has grown from a two-person startup operating out of a rented garage to a $5.2 billion enterprise in just 8 years. Their cloud infrastructure platforms now support over 40% of Fortune 500 companies, making CEO Sarah Chen one of the most influential technology leaders in the world. The silence that followed wasn't the polite quiet of people listening attentively to a presentation. It was the stunned, airless silence of people trying to process information that fundamentally contradicted everything they thought they knew about reality. Janet, the woman sitting directly beside me who'd been praising the wisdom of my stable career choices, was the first to find her voice. It came out as barely a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might somehow make the situation more real than she was prepared to handle. "Isn't this you on Fortune's CEO of the Year cover?" Every head at table 7 turned toward me simultaneously, their expressions cycling rapidly through confusion, disbelief, and dawning recognition. The woman they'd been chatting with about the virtues of secretarial work, the one they'd been offering career advice about accepting limitations, was staring back at them from a magazine cover celebrating the year's most successful business leader. The silence spread outward from our table like ripples from a stone dropped in perfectly still water. Table 6 noticed the commotion and turned to investigate. Then Table 5. The gentle conversation and soft clinking of silverware that had filled the ballroom moments before was replaced by the heavy, oppressive tension of people realizing that something fundamental about their understanding of the world had just shifted. From the head table, I could see Dad's face in profile as his brain worked furiously to process what he was seeing. His mouth was slightly open, displaying the expression of someone whose most basic assumptions about family hierarchy were being challenged in the most public way possible. Michael had turned completely around in his chair, his networking conversation forgotten as he stared at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. His confidence had evaporated entirely, replaced by the confused expression of someone whose understanding of his place in the family success story had just been completely inverted. Mom's face was visible from across the room, her carefully maintained social composure cracking as she tried to process the implications. The practical daughter who'd never had unrealistic dreams, who'd been encouraged to accept her limitations, had somehow built one of the most successful technology companies in American business history. Mr. Harrison continued his presentation, completely unaware of the family drama unfolding in his audience. According to Fortune's analysis, DataCore's impact on business efficiency has been truly transformative. Their platform integrations have saved companies an estimated $200 billion in operational costs over the past 3 years alone. The numbers felt surreal as they bounced around the silent ballroom. $5.2 billion company valuation. 40% of Fortune 500 companies. $200 billion in cost savings. These weren't the modest achievements expected from someone who was entry-level forever and more comfortable in supporting roles. The article goes into fascinating detail about Chen's unconventional approach to leadership, Mr. Harrison continued, consulting his notes with the enthusiasm of someone discussing a particularly impressive case study. She started the company with just $50,000 in personal savings and a vision for radically simplifying enterprise data management. Forbes estimates her current net worth at $2.3 billion, and she was recently named one of the 20 most influential women in global technology. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me as the presentation continued, the weight of revelation settling over the room like a thick blanket that made breathing difficult. The family secretary narrative that had defined my identity for 23 years was crumbling in real time, being replaced by a reality that no one in this room had been prepared to accept. The magnitude of the deception was becoming clear to everyone simultaneously. This wasn't a case of modest success being downplayed or achievements being understated. This was a complete alternate reality, a parallel existence that had been maintained through years of careful misdirection and strategic omission. Dad's boss was still talking, but I could see that no one was listening anymore. The entire ballroom was focused on reconciling the woman sitting quietly at table 7 with the transformational business leader being celebrated on screen. The cognitive dissonance was visible on every face, the mental strain of trying to update fundamental assumptions about how the world worked. The most remarkable thing about Chen's story, Mr. Harrison noted, is her philosophy of leadership through what she calls strategic invisibility. According to her Fortune interview, she believes that true power comes from building systems and capabilities rather than seeking personal recognition. She's built a global empire while maintaining almost complete anonymity in her personal life. Strategic invisibility. The phrase hit the room like a physical force, explaining everything and nothing simultaneously. I hadn't been hiding my success out of shame or insecurity about my achievements. I'd been protecting it, maintaining careful separation between my professional reality and my family's comfortable assumptions about my limitations. Chen argues that the most effective leaders are often the ones who operate below the radar, Mr. Harrison continued, building transformational businesses while avoiding the distractions that come with personal celebrity. Her approach has clearly been successful, as DataCore has achieved more in 8 years than most companies accomplish in decades. The presentation concluded with Mr. Harrison's final thoughts about industry transformation and the evolving nature of leadership in the digital age. But his words were lost in the stunned silence that had overtaken the ballroom. He closed his notes and left the stage, completely unaware that he'd just detonated a bomb in the middle of his company's holiday celebration. For several long moments no one moved. The silence stretched until it became unbearable, broken finally by the sharp sound of my cousin Jennifer's salad plate hitting the marble floor. She'd been reaching for her water glass and missed entirely, her hand shaking as she stared at me with an expression of complete bewilderment. That single sound seemed to break the spell that had frozen the room. Conversations erupted at every table, urgent whispers and heated discussions as people tried to understand what they'd just witnessed. The volume rose quickly as questions multiplied faster than answers could be formulated or processed. Dad was walking toward my table, his face cycling through emotions I'd never seen before in 35 years of knowing him. Behind him, Mom was gathering her purse with the mechanical movements of someone in shock, her social autopilot engaged while her conscious mind struggled to process the new reality. Michael remained frozen in his chair, staring at the now blank presentation screen as if waiting for it to make sense of a situation that had no precedent in his understanding of family dynamics or professional hierarchy. Sarah. Dad's voice was carefully controlled. The tone he used in difficult business negotiations when maintaining composure was essential to achieving acceptable outcomes. We need to talk. Right now. I nodded and stood, maintaining the calm demeanor that had served me well through 8 years of building DataCore from nothing and 23 years of managing family expectations with surgical precision. The time for strategic invisibility had apparently ended, but the principles that had made me successful remained unchanged. As we walked toward a quiet corner of the ballroom, I could hear fragments of conversation from the tables we passed. That's really her? How is that even possible? Did you know? She never said anything. $5 billion? Fortune magazine? CEO of the year? The questions would multiply exponentially over the coming hours and days. How long had I been running a billion-dollar company? Why had I let them believe I was just a secretary? What else didn't they know about my life? How had I managed to maintain such an elaborate deception for so many years? The answers would require careful consideration and honest conversations that were decades overdue. But for now, as Dad struggled to find words for a situation that had no precedent in our family's carefully ordered history, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. The crushing weight of constantly diminished expectations was lifting, being replaced by the terrifying but exhilarating possibility of being seen for who I actually was rather than who everyone had decided I should be. The family secretary was about to have a very different kind of conversation with her father, the regional vice president who'd just learned that his daughter was worth more than his entire company's annual revenue. Strategic invisibility had served its purpose perfectly, but the time had come for strategic revelation. The business world had already recognized Sarah Chen as one of their most successful leaders. Now her family would have to decide whether they were ready to meet her too.
She doesn't even belong here. It's humiliating. Amanda's voice sliced through the soft hum of conversation, halting everything. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, gone in an instant. My heart clenched. Across the room, my 8-year-old daughter, Lily, froze mid-turn of her cherished music box. Her small fingers hovered above the brass key, her eyes locked on the floor. The warmth of the living room evaporated, replaced by a suffocating stillness. I'm Emma, and I never imagined hearing words like that about my child, especially not from Amanda, my brother's new wife. Lily was diagnosed with autism at 4. She may experience the world through a different lens, but her heart? It's the most radiant thing I know. What did you just say? I asked, trying to steady the tremble in my voice. Amanda, draped elegantly on the edge of our parents' ornate sofa like she was posing for a catalog shoot, sighed and rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Emma. Someone had to say it. She just sits there, fiddling with that music box, barely saying a word. It's a party, not a therapy session. The air turned brittle. Conversations died mid-sentence. My brother, Michael, shifted in his seat, eyes glued to the floor. The silence from him hit harder than Amanda's cruelty. We'd grown up side by side in this house. We were a team. Now he wouldn't even defend his niece. She's family, my mom offered gently, though the conviction in her voice faltered. Conflict had never been her strength, especially not since Amanda entered our lives 6 months ago, all stilettos and sarcasm. I glanced at Lily. She still held the music box close, a delicate antique our grandmother had given her before passing. It was more than a keepsake, it was her anchor. Gran had been the one person who fully embraced Lily, who never saw her as broken, just beautifully unique. We're leaving, I said, rising. It's clear we're not welcome. I reached for Lily's hand, but she didn't budge. Instead, she did something none of us expected. She opened the music box. The soft, familiar melody filled the room, Over the Rainbow, Gran's favorite. But then Lily's voice rose gently to meet the notes, singing each line with haunting clarity. Her voice, usually barely above a whisper, carried through the stunned silence, every note tender, perfect. Amanda's smugness cracked. My mom's eyes glistened. Michael looked up at last, his expression stunned, equal parts guilt and awe. When the final note faded, Lily spoke, her voice quiet but certain. Gran taught me. She said music speaks when words can't. She also gave me these. She reached inside the music box and pulled out a stack of sealed, time-worn letters. Amanda's voice snapped. What is that supposed to be? Letters, Lily said, holding them with care. From Gran, one for each of us. She said to give them out when the time was right. I think this is the time. One by one, Lily handed them out, first to my parents, then Michael, then me. She stopped in front of Amanda and looked up. There isn't one for you, she said plainly. Gran told me family is about who stays, not who marries in. Amanda flushed, caught between anger and disbelief. Michael opened his letter with shaky hands, his eyes scanning the page. Tears slid down his cheeks. She knew, he whispered. Gran knew we'd start to fall apart after she was gone. That some people would try to rewrite what family means. He looked at Amanda with fresh eyes, really looked at her, and said nothing. Across the room, my parents read their letter together, their hands clasped tight, their faces softened by sorrow and something deeper, recognition. I opened mine, the scent of Gran's perfume rising from the paper, her handwriting looping with familiar grace. My dearest Emma, by now, things have changed. But family, real family, isn't about appearances or perfection. It's about love, loyalty, and seeing each other fully. Lily doesn't just see the world differently, she sees it more clearly. She sees hearts, not faces, intentions, not appearances. Trust her. I always did. There's one more thing in the music box. Something to remind everyone what really matters. Let her share it when she's ready. With all my love, Gran. I looked up just in time to see Lily reaching back into the music box. Her fingers closed around something hidden beneath the velvet lining, something she kept safe until now. Amanda stood abruptly, her voice brittle. You're letting a child manipulate you. She doesn't even function normally. But nobody responded. No one even looked at her. Every gaze was on Lily, standing tall in the middle of the room, her music box open, her courage unfolding with it. And in that still, sacred moment, we all understood. This was not the end of anything. It was the beginning. Lily pulled out a small, worn leather journal from a hidden compartment in the music box. The room remained silent as she opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with Gran's handwriting and something else. Photographs. Gran kept a diary, Lily said softly, her voice clear and steady. She wrote about everyone, about what she saw. She turned the pages gently, showing candid photos of our family through the years. Happy moments, difficult times, all captured through Gran's observant eyes. Then she stopped at a particular page. This is from 6 months ago, before Gran died. She held up a photo that made Amanda's face turn ghostly white. It showed Amanda at a cafe with another man, their hands intertwined across the table, taken just weeks before she married Michael. That's not what it looks like, Amanda stammered, but Lily wasn't finished. Ron wrote about that day, she continued, her finger tracing the words on the page. She saw you with him 3 more times. She wrote that she was worried about Michael, about what you might do to our family. Michael stood up slowly, his face a mixture of hurt and anger. Amanda? What is this? It's nothing. Amanda snapped, but her voice trembled. That old woman was crazy, following me around with a camera like some stalker. Ron wasn't crazy, Lily said firmly. She was protecting us, like she always did. She turned another page, revealing more photos, more entries. She wrote about how you made fun of me when you thought no one was listening. How you told Michael that keeping me in the family would ruin his image. My heart ached hearing this, but I couldn't take my eyes off my daughter. This little girl, who some people thought couldn't understand the world around her, had been carrying these truths, waiting for the right moment to protect our family. She also wrote about your plan, Lily continued, her voice growing stronger. About how you wanted to convince Michael to sell the family house after Gran died. She heard you on the phone with someone, talking about how much money you could make from the property. My parents gasped. The family home had been in our family for generations. The thought of selling it was unthinkable. That's enough, Amanda shouted, lunging for the diary, but Michael caught her arm, his face hard with realization. No, he said quietly, let her finish. Lily turned to the last page, where a final photo was carefully attached. It showed Amanda leaving a lawyer's office, dated just last week. Gran's friend Mrs. Peterson works there, Lily explained. She saw Amanda asking about how to transfer the house deed after marriage. The room erupted in chaos. Amanda was shouting denials, my parents were demanding explanations, but Michael just stood there, staring at the evidence of his wife's betrayal spread out before him. Why didn't you show us this sooner? He asked Lily quietly. My daughter looked at him with those wise eyes that saw so much more than people realized. Ron said timing matters. She said sometimes people need to show who they really are before the truth can help. I moved to stand behind Lily, placing my hands protectively on her shoulders. But she didn't need my protection anymore. She had grown stronger than any of us had realized. You don't understand what you're doing, Amanda hissed, grabbing her designer purse. You're ruining everything. No, Michael said, his voice firm. You did that yourself. He turned to Lily, kneeling down to her level. Thank you, sweetheart, for watching over us, just like Ron asked you to. Amanda stormed out, the door slamming behind her. The sound echoed through the house, marking the end of her presence in our family. My parents embraced Lily, their eyes filled with tears of gratitude and regret. We're so sorry, Mom whispered, for not seeing everything sooner, for not standing up for you stronger. But Lily just smiled, that beautiful, pure smile that lit up her whole face. Gran said family sometimes loses its way, she said, but love always brings them back home. She closed the music box gently, the familiar melody playing one last time. But there was still one more secret hidden inside, one final gift from Gran that would heal our family completely. The last part of the music box had a small folded paper and a tiny key. Lily carefully unfolded the paper and smoothed it out with her hands. It's Gran's real will, she said quietly. Michael leaned in, confused. But we already read the will months ago. Mom nodded. The lawyer handled it all after Gran passed. That wasn't Gran's real lawyer, Lily explained. Gran wrote that Amanda made her use someone else. But Gran kept the real will safe. She held up the key. This opens her safety deposit box at the old bank downtown. I remembered that bank. Gran had always used it, even when newer ones opened. Now I knew why. She was protecting our family, even after she was gone. The next morning, we all went to the bank. When the box opened, we found another letter from Gran and some legal papers that changed everything. The house, Mom said, her eyes wide. She read from the papers. Gran said it can never be sold. It belongs to a family trust, for Lily. Tears filled my eyes as I read Gran's letter. She had watched Lily grow, seen how special she was, and knew Lily was the right one to take care of our family's home and memories. Lily sees the truth where others only see differences, Gran wrote. She'll protect our home and keep our family together, just like she protected this will until the right time. Michael, who had started the process to divorce Amanda that morning, knelt beside Lily. You saved our home. You saved all of us. Lily smiled, a calm, knowing smile that reminded me so much of Gran. Gran said home isn't just a place, she said. It's where family remembers who they really are. In the months that followed, our family grew close again. The house became warm and full of laughter. Michael spent more time with Lily, and he began to see the world through her eyes. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing Gran had loved, Lily opened her music box again. As the melody played, she showed me a photo she had kept hidden until now. It was of Gran holding baby Lily, looking at her with love and pride. On the back, Gran had written, "Some see her difference as a problem. I see it as her superpower. She'll show everyone that love is louder than words, and truth is brighter than how things look." Ron knew you needed time to believe in yourself, I told Lily, hugging her close. She knew you'd show the world your strength, your way. She said being different isn't wrong, Lily replied, her voice strong. It's just a better way of seeing things. When the real Will was shown, Amanda's claims to the house and family estate were thrown out. She left quickly, and we didn't see her again. Michael was free to heal, and our family was stronger without her. Now the music box sits on the fireplace mantel. Lily plays it every evening. Its soft tune reminds us of love, courage, and how one quiet girl saved us all. Gran's love lives on, not just in the house, but in Lily. She showed us that family isn't about being perfect. It's about love, kindness, and standing up for what's right. And Lily, she keeps amazing us. We no longer hide her autism or feel ashamed of it. We celebrate it, because Gran was right. Lily's way of seeing the world makes our lives richer, stronger, and more beautiful than we ever imagined. You're not welcome here anymore, Amanda sneered, blocking the doorway to the mansion's grand entrance. This is a family gathering, and you're not family. Behind her, I could see the warm glow of Christmas lights and hear the laughter of relatives enjoying the annual holiday party. My father-in-law's voice carried from somewhere inside, telling one of his favorite stories. I gripped the homemade apple pie tighter, my mother's recipe that everyone had always loved. Amanda, I've been coming to these gatherings for 8 years. Just because your brother and I are divorced. Exactly. She cut me off, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at my chest. You and Michael are over. That means you're out. We're done pretending you belong here. She grabbed the pie from my hands. Thanks for the dessert, though. Now leave before I call security. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 34, I was being kicked out of the family Christmas party by my former sister-in-law, who'd never approved of me from day one. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I wasn't from the same social circle as them. The irony of the situation almost made me laugh. Fine, I said quietly, turning away from the door. Enjoy the party, Amanda. As I walked back to my car, snow crunching under my boots, I heard the door slam behind me. 8 years of memories in that house. Birthdays, holidays, Sunday dinners, all erased because my marriage hadn't worked out. Michael and I had separated amicably, both realizing we wanted different things in life. But his family, especially Amanda, had turned it into a social war. What Amanda didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 6 days ago, I'd signed the final papers making me the official owner of the Morrison Mansion. The very house they were celebrating in right now. The very house Amanda had just kicked me out of. It hadn't been my intention to buy it. I'd been working with a real estate investment group looking for properties to renovate and restore. When the Morrison Mansion came up for sale, I almost ignored it. But then I saw the price, barely half of what it was worth. The previous owner, old Mr. Harrison, had been desperate for a quick, quiet sale. I did some digging and discovered why. The Morrisons, my former in-laws, had been renting the mansion for the past 5 years, presenting themselves as the owners to their social circle. But they'd never actually bought it. They'd been paying rent to Mr. Harrison while telling everyone the house was their family estate. Now they were 3 months behind on rent, and Mr. Harrison wanted out. I sat in my car, watching the party through the frost-covered windows. The mansion was beautiful, especially in winter. Its stone facade and towering windows reminded me of something from a fairy tale. I'd fallen in love with it the first time Michael brought me here. Now it was mine, and they had no idea. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica, my best friend and real estate partner. Did you tell them? Amanda kicked me out before I could. Gee, when are you going to drop the bomb? Not tonight. Let them have their party. You're too nice. I'd walk right back in there and announce it to everyone. I smiled at Jessica's message. She'd never liked how Amanda treated me, always telling me to stand up for myself more. But revenge wasn't my style. I hadn't bought the house to spite them. I'd bought it because it was a good investment. The fact that it would force them to face their lies was just a bonus. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Emma, to discuss next steps. The previous owner had asked me to honor the existing rental agreement for at least 2 months, giving the Morrisons time to find a new place. I agreed, but there was still the matter of their overdue rent. They need to pay what they owe, Emma said, spreading documents across her desk. Mr. Harrison has provided all the payment records. They haven't paid rent since October. I nodded, looking at the figures. It was a substantial amount. Send them an official notice. Don't mention that I'm the new owner yet. Just that the property has been sold and all past due amounts need to be paid. Emma raised an eyebrow. You're being very generous. Most new owners would evict them immediately. I know, but I want to do this right. They're going to be angry enough when they find out it's me. I don't want to give them any ammunition to fight back. As I left Emma's office, my phone rang. It was Michael. Liv, Amanda told me what happened last night. I'm so sorry. It's fine, Michael. Really? No, it's not. You're still family to me, regardless of our divorce. I'll talk to her. Don't bother. Everything's going to work out exactly as it should. I could hear the confusion in his silence. Michael had always been the kindest of the Morrisons, which was probably why we'd managed to stay friends after our divorce. But even he didn't know about his family's financial situation. Amanda and their parents had kept it hidden from him, just like they hid it from everyone else. That evening, as I sat in my apartment reviewing renovation plans for other properties, I received an email from Emma. The official notice had been sent to the Morrison family. In 2 days, they would learn they had a new landlord. In 2 days, their carefully constructed facade would begin to crack. I poured myself a glass of wine and looked out at the city lights. 8 years ago, I entered the Morrison family feeling like I didn't belong. Amanda had made sure I never forgot my common background, my lack of social connections, my ordinary job in historic preservation. She never knew that while she was looking down on me, I was building my own success, one property at a time. Now I owned the very symbol of their supposed status. The mansion they pretended was their family legacy, the home they used to maintain their social standing. And soon, very soon, they would have to face the truth, not just about the house, but about themselves. I picked up my phone and texted Jessica back. Notice has been sent. Let the games begin. Her response was immediate. Finally. Can't wait to see Amanda's face when she finds out who her new landlord is. Neither could I, if I was being honest. Neither could I 2 days later. I was in my office when Emma called. They've received the notice, she said, trying to suppress a laugh. And they're having quite a reaction. Amanda's already called 3 times demanding to speak to the new owner. I leaned back in my chair, imagining the chaos unfolding at the mansion. What did you tell her? That the owner wishes to remain anonymous for now, but expects all past due rent to be paid within the week. Emma paused. She's not taking it well. Just then, my phone lit up with a call from Michael. I've been expecting this. Liv, did you hear what's happening? His voice was tense. Someone bought the mansion. My parents are freaking out, and Amanda's on a warpath. Really? I kept my voice neutral. What's wrong? Apparently, they're behind on rent. I had no idea we were renting. They always told me we owned it. He sounded hurt, confused. Why would they lie about that? I felt a twinge of sympathy for Michael. He'd always been honest, sometimes to a fault. Finding out his family had been living a lie must be devastating. People keep secrets for all sorts of reasons, I said carefully. Amanda's convinced it's someone from our social circle trying to humiliate us. She's already called half the country club trying to figure out who bought it. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Amanda had always been obsessed with social status, constantly worried about what others thought. This situation was her worst nightmare come true. Later that afternoon, I drove past the mansion, curiosity getting the better of me. Amanda's red Mercedes was in the driveway and I could see her pacing in front of the large bay windows, phone pressed to her ear. Even from the street, her agitation was visible. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Your SIL just called my real estate office trying to get info about the buyer. Should have seen her face when we told her all inquiries go through Emma. I smiled, typing back. How long should we let this play out? Let them stew for a few days, They need to understand they're not in control anymore. She was right. The Morrisons had spent years maintaining their facade of wealth and ownership. A few days of uncertainty wouldn't kill them. But the universe had other plans. The next morning, I received an urgent call from Emma. "They're trying to claim adverse possession," she said, sounding both amused and annoyed. "Amanda's found some lawyer who's telling them they might have a claim to the property since they've been living there for 5 years. I sat up straighter. Can they do that? Not a chance. They have a rental agreement and have been paying rent, albeit irregularly. That negates any adverse possession claim. But, Emma hesitated. I think it's time to reveal who owns the property. Otherwise, they might try something desperate. I agreed, though my stomach churned at the thought of the confrontation to come. Set up a meeting. Tomorrow, if possible. Let's end this. Emma arranged for the meeting to take place at her office. I arrived early, settling into a chair in the conference room while Emma reviewed our documentation one last time. They're here, her assistant announced, and moments later, the door opened. Amanda strode in first, looking immaculate as always in her designer suit. Her parents followed, then Michael, who stopped short when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" Amanda demanded, her perfectly lined lips curling into a sneer. I stood up slowly, smoothing down my own suit. Not designer, but well-tailored and professional. "I'm here because I own the mansion." The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, rage. Her mother gripped her father's arm, both of them pale. Michael just started laughing. "This is a joke," Amanda finally sputtered. "You can't possibly. You don't have that kind of money." I slid the property deed across the table. "Actually, I do. I've been investing in real estate for years. The mansion was a good opportunity. Undervalued, great location, solid structure." But, Amanda's mother stammered. "You have 2 options," I continued, my voice steady. "Pay the overdue rent and continue your lease for 2 more months while you find a new place, or leave immediately. You can't do this to us." Amanda's voice rose to a shriek. "This is our home." "No," I corrected her. "It's my property, which you've been renting and lying about." Michael stepped forward, still chuckling. "This is perfect. Absolutely perfect." He turned to his family. "All those years you spent looking down on Olivia, and she ends up owning our supposed family estate." Amanda looked like she might explode. "You knew about this," she accused her brother. "Not until just now," he replied, "but I have to appreciate the irony." Their father finally spoke up, his voice tired. "We'll pay the overdue rent, and we'll be out in 2 months. Amanda whirled on him. "Daddy, no. We can't let her win like this." "Win?" I interjected. "This isn't about winning, Amanda. It's business. I bought a property that was for sale. What happens next is up to you." As they filed out of the conference room, Michael lingered behind. "I'm sorry," he said. "About everything." I shook my head. "Don't be. You were never the problem." He smiled. "No, I wasn't. But I never stood up to them either." He turned to leave, then paused. "You know what the funny thing is? You finally got what you always wanted, their respect, even if it's grudging." I watched him go, thinking about his words. Respect had never been what I wanted from the Morrisons. All I'd ever wanted was to be treated like a person, not a social climbing intruder. Now, ironically, I had become exactly what they had pretended to be, the owner of their precious mansion. 3 weeks had passed since the meeting in Emma's office. True to their word, the Morrisons had paid the overdue rent, though I heard through Michael that Amanda had thrown an epic tantrum about it, accusing her parents of surrendering to the enemy. I was reviewing renovation plans for the mansion. It would need significant updates once they moved out, when my phone rang. It was Amanda. "We need to talk," she said, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge, in person. "Please." I agreed to meet her at a local cafe, curious about what could make Amanda say please to me. When I arrived, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the perfectly coiffed appearance she usually maintained. Instead, she looked tired. "I've been thinking," she said, staring into her untouched coffee. "About everything. About how I treated you all these years." I sat quietly, waiting for her to continue. "When Michael first brought you home, I was so angry. Not because of you exactly, but because you represented everything I was afraid of." She looked up at me. Someone who didn't care about our social rules, who worked hard and succeeded on their own. "I spent my whole life trying to maintain this image, and you just We're yourself. Amanda, I started, but she held up her hand. Let me finish. Last week, I overheard some women at the country club talking about us. About how the mighty Morrisons were just renters all along. I was mortified. But then one of them said something that stuck with me. She said, "At least the new owner earned it honestly." I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. The social circle wasn't as important as you thought, was it? She shook her head, almost laughing. God, no. They're all calling you a brilliant businesswoman now. The same people who used to whisper about you being a gold digger. People's opinions change like the wind, I said. That's why I never cared about them in the first place. Amanda was quiet for a moment. We found a new place. Smaller, but actually within our means. Dad's finally admitted he needs to scale back, start living more honestly. She met my eyes. I wanted to ask, would you consider selling us some of the furniture from the mansion? The pieces that have actual family history? I smiled, reaching into my bag. Actually, I had Emma draw this up. I handed her a document. It's a list of all the furniture and fixtures in the house. I'd like you to go through and mark what has genuine family significance. Those pieces are yours. Her eyes widened. But why? Because despite everything, that house holds your family memories. I'm going to renovate it, make it into something new, but you should keep the pieces that matter. Tears welled in Amanda's eyes, the first real emotion I'd ever seen from her. Thank you, she whispered. I don't deserve this kindness. Maybe not, I agreed, but it's not about deserving. It's about doing what's right. A week later, I stood in an empty mansion, sunlight streaming through the windows. The Morrisons had moved out early, leaving behind a letter from Amanda with the furniture list and a surprising addition, her grandmother's cookbook, filled with handwritten recipes and notes. These recipes made this house the home she'd written. Maybe they can do the same for its next chapter. Michael stopped by as I was going through the rooms, making notes for the renovation. You've changed them, you know, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Amanda's actually working now, got a job at an event planning firm. Mom and Dad are selling their country club membership. I raised an eyebrow. Really? He nodded. Sometimes people need to lose everything to realize what really matters. He looked around the room. What are your plans for this place? I'm turning it into a boutique hotel, I said. Keeping the historical features but modernizing where needed. This place has too much character to be just another private residence. Michael smiled. From unwanted outsider to the owner transforming the family mansion into something new. That's quite a story. Life's funny that way, I agreed. As I locked up the mansion that evening, I thought about everything that had happened. I hadn't bought this place for revenge, but the outcome had changed more than just property ownership. It had shattered pretenses, forced honesty, and somehow, in the end, brought a kind of peace. Amanda and I would never be best friends, but we had reached an understanding. The Morrisons had lost their facade, but gained something more valuable, authenticity. And me? I had finally closed the chapter on my past with this family, not with bitterness, but with unexpected grace. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply living well and allowing others the chance to learn and grow. The mansion's keys felt right in my hand. It was time to begin its new story.